is going to lose a lot of territory and is only going to be ruling over this part. Even the Lombards are also going to be invading Italy, so they also lose control of most of the Italian kingdom, and Italy is just going to be divided within several nobles and several lords, but it is no longer a united kingdom, as you can see here. This will be everything that is going to remain as a part of the Byzantine Empire by the 7th century, because all of the other territories are going to be lost to Islam, as you can see over here. From this map over here to this map over here, that was the effect that Islam had on the Roman Empire. So as you can very well see, as you may very well see, there is like a pattern over here. We can see that something is happening in terms of territory. What we're analyzing right now is this great overview, but about territory. And I may propose to use this type of analysis, because I have seen this type of analysis several times. Even Friedrich Nietzsche uses this type of analysis. So we may see that in the 4th century, we start the second half of the 4th century with Theodosius unifying the whole empire. Before this, the empire was actually divided in 4 empires. It had 2 Caesars and 2 Augustus, so the empire was kind of a mess in regarding to who holded the power. And we didn't saw this division because it was basically also state, and last trimester we were focusing on the ways of organization. But yes, before Theodosius unified the whole territory of Rome, Rome was even divided into 4 parts of an empire with 2 Caesars and 2 Augustus. So by the 4th century, this is the situation. Rome is going to be reunified. It is a moment in which the territories are going to be coming together under one same way of organization. But in the 5th century, so right after Theodosius dies, we're going to start a big process of division. We're going to start first with the division of the empire after his death, and then after the last emperor de facto, that was Romulus Augustus, and also the defeat of Julius Nepos, that was the emperor by law. So the Juris, remember that Julius Nepos was emperor de Juris, and Romulus Augustus was emperor de facto, but both of them were defeated by this time. So the empire, all this territory of the former empire, is going to be divided. So the 5th century, in terms of territory, may be thought of as a century of great divisions. What used to be only one empire becomes then 2 empires, and then is just divided into all these kingdoms and territories. But then we can see the 6th century, the century that we saw last class, that is again a period of unification. Again, we're going to be having very few kingdoms, as we were saying. The Byzantine Empire, the Goths over here with Theodoric the Great, that is going to be ruling over the Ostrogothic kingdom and the Visigothic kingdom. So we may think about both of these kingdoms as simply the kingdoms of the Goths, with TH, not with a D, the Goths. And this is going to be ruled by Theodoric. France is going to be ruled by Clovis the First. Perhaps Britain, perhaps by Arthur the King Arthur. And finally, we're going to be having the Vandal kingdom. So 3 main kingdoms, plus the Byzantine Empire and perhaps the Britons, are going to be adding up all these territories that in the 5th century were so divided. So we're going to start in the first half of the 6th century with this first unification, but then we're going to have this huge unification by the end of the century, in which what we're going to have is just the Byzantine Empire, the Visigoths, and the Franks, and the Saxons are going to start growing by this time, not the Britons but the Saxons. and they are eventually going to unify England. And once they do that, then they're going to come to be of the greatest importance. But for now, the only ones that we are seeing by the end of the 6th century is the Byzantine Empire, the Visigoths, and the Franks. The Vandals were defeated, so only those three. And in the 7th century, it is a period of even more unification. Why? Because Islam is going to unify these huge territories under their religion, but not only their religion, because their religion comes, at least by these times, with a way of government. They are going to be a religious state. So the religion is not going to be the only thing spread with Islam. Also, the Islamic State and their way of government. So the 7th century is basically going to have this huge unification of territories in the Middle East and in small and in well, yes, small Asia, minor Asia, sorry, and all the way up to France, up to England, no, up to Spain, sorry, and yes, a part of France too, this part of France, but mainly Spain through northern Africa. Okay, so this is even a greater unification, and then we can propose a second way of analysis about these processes. We are seeing how all these things are changing, and perhaps if we can find some of these nice patterns to analyze this phenomena. So religion is also something that is going to be a part of the processes changing throughout the 5th and the, sorry, I don't know why this was closed, throughout the 5th and the 6th century and the 7th century. So the 4th century is going to start with the paganism in Rome. They are going to have all their different gods with Jupiter in the center, and all the other gods in the Roman literature. And then by the end of the 4th century, Theodosius, that was the one that unified the empire, but also the one that divided it for his sons after his death, established Christianism as the official religion of the empire. Constantine, by those years, remember that had made this council in which he decided what was the official version of Christianism, because we did not only have the Paul's version of religion in which Christ is a god, as we believe it nowadays, but we also had this other way of thinking about Christ, that was the one about Arius. And in this option, remember that he did not believe that Christ was quite a god, that he believed that Christ was a lesser god than the Father, that only the Father was a true God. So perhaps there are a couple of concepts in Spanish that I know that may help us understand this. I don't know if they exist in English, like this differentiation, but at least in Spanish it exists, and it is the difference between eterno y sempiterno. Because something eternal, remember, is like we studied last trimester with everything about time. Something eternal is something that has no beginning and no end. But something algo sempiterno is something that has a beginning, but it has no end. So according to Arius, the Father would be the only one eternal, and Christ would be sempiternal. Why? Because he would have a beginning, but yes, he was when he was created, a son of the Father, but he would still be a lesser God, but still a God. So he would be eternal from that moment on. So he would believe more or less that he was less of a god than the Father. But by the 5th century, then, as Theodosius is going to decide that Christianism and the Paul's version of Christianism is going to be the formal religion and the official religion of Rome, then what we have is that polytheism is going to disappear of the charts. The ancient pagan gods are going to be disappearing, and we're only going to still have the Paul's version of Christianism, that is Catholicism, and we're going to have the Arius version of Christianism, that is Arianism. And remember that, well, as the version of Paul is the official version of the empire, then the Romans are going to be following Catholicism, but all the Foederati, all the barbarians, as the Romans call them, but all these peoples like the Visigoths are going to be Arians. So this is also going to be very important because